PowerPoint?
Yes, Kim, I have it so I can pull it up for when it's your time to present.
Great, thanks.
Morning.
Hello, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
They'll have people joining.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to have to jump off like a couple minutes early before the end of the meeting to take another meeting. I apologize.
Thanks for letting us know, Ann.
Hi, it's Marcia Eckert. I'm going to have to jump off when I get a call because my husband has a TBI and I'm waiting for a call from the doctor.
Oh dear. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
I hope it all turns out okay.
Sorry to hear that.
Tara, are you still admitting people?
Yes, I think we're up to 30, so I think we're good. And just to let everyone know, we are on CTN today. And I don't have anyone else coming in, Gemina, so you can go ahead and start the meeting.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Today is November 20th, and this is the Autism Spectrum Disorder Advisory Council. So we're very excited to bring everyone together today. I'm the co-chair. My name is Jimna Miller, and my co-chair is Yana, and she is not available to come today. She had a conflict. So I'll be joined by Tara. And we'll move this meeting through the agenda. So
First, we
Tara, do you want to get started?
We have two new members. We wanted
We do.
to give an opportunity for them to introduce themselves. So Christine, do you want to go first?
Sure, why not? Good morning, everyone. My name is Christine Ferressa. I'm from Watertown, Connecticut. I am an autism parent with a background in being on the Watertown Board of Education and running a nonprofit working directly with autism families, providing community and support. So I'm deeply into this community and I'm happy to be here to help in any way possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. And I see Melissa is just joining us. So Melissa, sorry to put you on the spot, but we are introducing you as a new member. So if you could just take a moment to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry for my tardiness. I was trying to find the link. So it's nice to see all of you and meet everyone. My name is Melissa Paul Perez. I am, I believe, coming on to the committee as designated as an advocate for a person with autism. My son, who's 6 years old, was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder level 1 about 18 months ago. And so that's what brings me sort of into this world. And I'm fairly new to being in the autism community. So I'm excited to be on this committee to learn more from all of you and to provide any insight that I can. So it's nice to meet you all.
Thank you, both of you.
So next we have a public comment. So if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment, you can use the raise hand feature and I will call on you. We have 5 minutes designated for public comment. I'm not seeing anyone. Gemina, do you see?
I don't. I'm just going through our list here, and I didn't get any any notes that anyone wanted to use the floor. So now I think we can move on.
All right, sounds good. So the meeting minutes were posted on the website. Can I get a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Thanks, Patrick. A second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, and Jennifer, I believe I saw you're on, so then we're up to Caroline updates.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Tara. I have our October Medicaid funded services updates. Let me share my screen. Am I able to share my screen? Yes. There we go. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. So our October 2024 authorization trends continue to show an increase in all of our service classes per our usual trends, with the exception of the group intervention services. That remains at a pretty steady low number of authorizations over time. So here you see the light blue is our treatment plan and program book development authorizations. And just a reminder that this is a rolling 3-year period of time. So it starts in 2021 rather than 2015 when our program started. We're just not able to show it all on one screen. It would be overwhelming. So the treatment plan and program book development continues to be our highest number of authorizations and utilization. And for those of you new to this data, the reason of that is because the treatment plan and program book can be updated on a periodic basis throughout an individual's treatment. So it is authorized a little bit more frequently than other service classes. So that is a trend that we expect to see. We also then have the behavior assessment as the dark purple line, the 7,238. And that's also a high utilization for a similar reason. So every time an individual starts services with a new provider or initial services for their very first time, it is required that they access a behavior assessment. So that is authorized at the start of all services and can also be accessed if there's behavior change, or if somebody has been inpatient or has had multiple emergency room visits, just to take a look at the behavior. So that's also a highly authorized service class. Followed then by the diagnostic evaluation. And then our direct observation, direction, and service delivery is a pretty close overlap over here. The green and the black lines overlapping together. The purpose of that overlap is that we do authorize those together. The direct observation and direction is authorized at a 10%, at least 10% increment of the direct service delivery, so that we are sure that the behaviorist or the licensed clinician is overseeing the services at least 10% of the time that a behavior technician is there. To look more closely at our current authorizations, our current open authorizations. So we currently have 499 individuals who are authorized to access a diagnostic evaluation. That number does typically increase at the beginning of the school year. There's just more eyes on a kid, more referral options for that authorization for the diagnostic evaluation. So we do tend to see a little blip of that at the beginning of the school year, and that will kind of level out again. Usually right around the holidays, it starts to level out again. For our direct service delivery, we have 4,945 kids who are accessing the direct service delivery. That's either in their home or center-based. So that's a combined number there for all individuals who are accessing that direct service delivery. Then, as I had mentioned, we have 75 individuals in the group treatment services. That always remains our lowest number, and is typically it's the highest utilization in our younger preschool to early school age kids. A lot of our center-based services are not working with older teens or individuals with big behaviors. They have it as more of like a skill acquisition and a generalization of social skills, which is totally appropriate. And I think that's good that they're using it for the little guys. Here we look at our admissions, and it's important to remember that admissions here is defined as the first authorization for our autism services. So our 3-year-olds continue to be the highest age group of utilization, which is great to see that they're coming over to us upon their discharge from birth to 3 services. We have 1,687 total 3-year-olds who are accessing services across all of the different service classes. So they're the highest number of utilization for all of our service classes, which is great to see. Followed closely by our 4 and 5-year-olds, which is also wonderful. As you know, we all know that early intervention shows a better prognosis. On this slide, we look at the demographics, and this is a pretty steady demographic representation. This does not change very much over time. Our unknown individuals are defined as individuals who do not identify their race or ethnicity at the time of Medicaid application. We do actually have some activities that we will be looking into this further to be able to better define and understand what that group is over the next calendar year. It is the highest bucket of people for all services and all utilization in Medicaid. So we want to be able to better understand that group of individuals. So for the unknown bucket, we have almost 34% of our Medicaid members accessing the autism services in that group, followed by Hispanic at 27%, white at 20.5%, Black at almost 13%, and Asian at 2.3%. We also look at the utilization here by DCF region and whether or not they have DCF involvement or not. So you can see in the pie chart that our largest group is non-DCF involved youth at 96%. We do have about 4.7% who are either in a CPS investigation or committed to DCF. And then the very teeny tiny 0.02% of individuals who also have the Carelon voluntary care management services as well as Medicaid funded services. And while that is the smallest group that we possibly could have, they are also the very most complex individuals that we work with in the state. They have multiple agency involvement, sometimes co-occurring medical complexities or other mental health complexities. So they are very complex in what they need to access for services. Our region breakdown also remains very steady. Our region 4, which is the Hartford-Manchester DCF region, always remains our highest utilization. It's part of the densest part of the state, not just for members, but also for providers. We have a ton of providers in that area of the state. So they're able to access services a little bit more readily there. Where we see region 3, that region closest to Rhode Island, and region 1, which is the Bridgeport area, as lower authorized services, but we also have fewer members and fewer providers in each of those areas. Here we look at our continued provider growth, which is really exciting, although I always say no matter how many I enroll, we will not have enough in this state. So if you know BCBAs or licensed clinicians who are interested in becoming Medicaid enrolled, please send them my way. We are up to 161 total agencies who are able to provide those services, whether it's in-home or center-based. We do have some that provide kind of a hybrid model. We have 1,150 total individual providers. So that is a combination of both providers who are able to do the diagnostic evaluation as well as the providers able to oversee the direct service delivery. And then the 1,013 are the individuals who are able to just oversee the direct service delivery. So that is part of that 1,150 bucket. We just like to be able to break that down a little bit more so that you can see the number of providers who are able to oversee the services. As expected, our practices are mostly made up of BCBAs with other combinations of different licensed clinicians who are also able to oversee the direct service delivery. Any questions on the authorization information before I move over to our care coordinators and peer specialists? Okay. So for our care coordinators and peer specialists, for those of you who are newer to this group, our care coordinators and peer specialists are assigned to any individual with Medicaid and either a suspected autism diagnosis or a confirmed autism diagnosis. And their purpose is to help our members navigate the very complex system of care in accessing either autism specific services or other support resources. So they could also connect them with VNA or OTPT speech. So services that we would not necessarily directly oversee and authorize on our team, but are services that help the family remain stable. So we do not maintain a wait list for our care coordinators and peer specialists. Every person who contacts us is assigned somebody, with the exception of our tier 1 families. So we do have a tiering process just because we do have quite a few referrals that come in every day. This time of year, we have between 40 and 60 new referrals a day. So it is quite busy. So we do have a tiering process. So our tier 1 families, which you see is about 14% of our individuals in that pie chart all the way to the right. Our tier 1 families are families that are calling into us just because they need a place to start. They might not know where our provider list is. They might not know what's covered under their insurance. It's often a very quick touch. They might open and close with us in the same day. Our tier 2 families, which makes up the largest group of our individuals at about 84% of the individuals we work with, are families that need a little bit more than that just kind of kickoff. So we might also be reaching out to providers to make referrals to providers for them, finding out what providers' wait lists look like, and then helping them get on those wait lists. So we would be calling providers on a weekly basis on behalf of the families to get them connected to a provider. So that's the majority of the work that we're doing. We're also looking for other resources and other groups that a family can access. So a lot of times we are connecting them with ASRC or any of our other support agencies across the state that are able to help with non-Medicaid funded services. Our tier 3 families, the 1.28%, while it's a smaller percentage, they do require more support. So that's more reserved for individuals who have had some recent inpatient hospitalizations, emergency room visits, or have other agency involvement. They might have DCF involvement. They might be applying for DDS eligibility and trying to get through that application process. So we do offer them a face-to-face visit. We can go out to their home and help them actually fill out those applications and get all of the information collected that is required for those eligibility packets. Our tier 4 families, the dark purple tiny slice there, it's a very small group of individuals. They are reserved for our highest utilizers of emergency rooms, inpatient settings. We do offer them the wraparound care coordination model. So that's a much more intensive care coordination, which would involve weekly meetings with our care coordinator and peer specialist team, as well as any of the other providers that they might be working with. Their psychiatrists, outpatient providers, nursing, whoever else would be involved in helping keep that family stable. On the left in our bar graph there, we do break down where each family is in the process of accessing services. So the top 2 bars where we're identifying an appropriate provider, that's where our care coordinators are reaching out to providers across the state in families, individual communities to get them on wait lists and find out their availability. So we have 131 there. And then we have 115 who are actively referred to a provider and on their wait list. So it's important to remember that our providers maintain their own wait lists. Carelon does not maintain their wait lists for them. We do reach out to them on a weekly basis to get an update on what their wait lists look like and what their timelines look like for families who are on their wait list. Below that, we have information just regarding all of the different areas that a family might be in their process of accessing services. So we have some who might be waiting to transition from birth to 3. They might be waiting to discharge from a higher level of care, or we're working to help them gather needed documentation in order to access the direct service delivery, that diagnostic evaluation. We might be tracking that down from the provider who completed that. And then we also have individuals who are waiting for specific provider types. So they might speak another language besides English. or might be requesting male or female only staff, which does just make the wait times a little bit longer for those children.
Jennifer, it's Jimna.
Yeah.
Um,
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for this. Is there any, just when we're talking about wait times and we see the, the large chunk at the top in that bar graph, right? Identifying appropriate provider and then being referred. Is there for those two, for awaiting services and then at the bottom, care coordination and prep, are those are those dependencies or are they done simultaneously? Like, gathering documentation and identifying appropriate provider. Do they happen sequentially or are they done in tandem?
That's a great question. So prior to us receiving the diagnostic evaluation that would confirm the diagnosis of autism, we're reaching out to providers on a regular basis saying, hey, we have 15 kids in Middletown, we have 22 kids in Bridgeport, without providing specific information about that child. Once we have the diagnostic evaluation for that child, then we're reaching out to the provider with that specific information, saying here's what the level of need is based on the recommendations in the diagnostic evaluation. They're verbal, they're nonverbal, here's their cognitive functioning level and that kind of stuff, so that then providers can make a more informed decision about whether or not they can work with that child. But on a routine basis, we're reaching out to providers to find out what their availability is as a blanket, and then we're
Okay.
also reaching out with more specific information. In 2025, we actually have a goal to work with our data and reporting team to be able to gather more specific timeline information for ourselves from the point of a child coming to us for care coordination and their first date of service. While that sounds like it should be super simple, our system of documentation that we use is very complex. So we're working with our data and reporting team to be able to see how we can pull that information and better be informed for ourselves what wait times look like. Because right now we rely solely on the report of our providers out to us.
Right. Yeah, I just didn't know, like, what does good look like? Do we like to see that, the number, of families gathering documentation? Do we want to see that, bigger or smaller? Or does this look appropriate in your mind for the amount of, coming in of
Yeah, so
referrals?
that number has shifted a little bit. The families gathering documentation used to be our largest bucket of families.
Yeah,
Um, since moving to our tiering system and putting more of that on our families to do that without us tracking them down constantly, that number has decreased. But I will say the number of identifying appropriate providers, that number has increased. So it kind of flipped a little bit, but I'm happy to see it that way because I want them connecting to a provider rather than stuck in that looking for documentation period.
yeah. I think about families gathering documentation for, for this activity, for our waiver lists, there's always documentation, there's
Yeah.
always, families, the burden on families to gather this kind of stuff. So that was
And
kind of
that's
what I
why our
was.
tier 2 group is the largest group, because that's where we're helping them track down that information.
Thank you.
That is the majority of what we do. And actually last week we met with our the DDS Children's Services program and said to them, if you know of individuals that we had put as a tier 1, they said they got it, and then you meet with them and they don't got it, like, let us know, call us and let us know that we need to reach out. So
That's
we
helpful.
share. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Any other questions? All right.
I think
Thank
we
you.
have one, sorry, I
Oh,
think we have one from the chat. I can't open this up. Hold on.
I can read it. Are there
Okay.
care coordinators or peer specialists assisting families with DDS eligibility applications, regardless of whether or not they have Medicaid?
so our care coordination and peer specialists through Careline are only for Medicaid families. We are not able to work with commercially insured families, as this is a Medicaid benefit.
Best contact for families to get a clinical care manager.
Yep, I'll put the phone number in the chat. You're welcome, Sarah. And that's just our main number for Caroline CTBHP. So you'll get one of our customer service representatives, and you just ask to speak with somebody in the autism services team.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, anything else for Jennifer? Thank you. And as always, if you don't mind sending me the slide deck, I would appreciate it. All right, thank you so much. Next, Christine, do you have any waiver updates?
Hi, good morning, everyone. How are you?
Hello.
Okay, so let me see. I have some information to share. You know, not a significant shift from the last time we reported out on our numbers. You know, we have you know, just under 250 individuals fully active on the waiver with case managers and receiving services. We have a number that are in kind of like our various queues that we've talked about, which is Medicaid eligibility assessment and just trying to onboard. We are down some case manager staff, and I have placed a request, you know, for them to be considered for, you know, to be refilled, but that goes through kind of like our hiring process and kind of the very numerous layers of, you know, decision making on that. So I have not had permission to replace our vacancies. So our case managers are holding larger than expected caseloads right now. I believe, Mike, are we at 2 vacancies currently? Mike Olson? Oh, maybe we don't have him. I believe we're at 2 currently, and that means that our supervisor is holding a caseload and our other case managers are carrying larger caseloads. So we are still working though through the individuals that are next in line. As we talked about those checklists in that other conversation, we are doing advanced kind of notice with our teams that if you're about to be reached on the wait lists, this is the information you need to start collecting because Medicaid eligibility is complicated. Disability determination documents, you know, could take some time to process. So we're still working through all of those kind of best practices that have been set up over the past year. So nothing really significant has shifted in the waiver right now. We're kind of just continuing forward. We have had a significant provider leave the autism waiver service delivery. And the case managers were very successful of getting those families served by other providers. The department is very aware that rates remain a constant concern amongst our providers. You know, we are looking at that. I've asked our waiver care managers to identify where they see the biggest gaps. What service do they wish that they can put into a care plan more than we actually have capacity for? And we're taking all of that information back as we kind of consider where if we can put resources anywhere where they would be best, you know, focused. So kind of just the same things that we see kind of day in, day out, you know, lack of workforce, you know, the case managers doing everything they can to try to support the families and fulfill these care plans and get the services delivered. And they're doing the best they can. We are short-staffed and short providered. So they are doing a great job with the resources that they have. So that, Tara, that's about what we have right now going on.
And quick question, last time you reported that you were interviewing for the director position, was that fulfilled or?
Yeah, so for those of you that are familiar, the Department of Social Services, the autism waiver sits within the broader community options division that I'm the director of, where we oversee all of the HCBS waivers and state plan services that help individuals remain in the community. There are numerous managerial openings and an associate director opening. So specifically for the autism waiver manager position, that will be interviewed for shortly. But again, that doesn't that position helps, but doesn't carry caseloads. So we still need our case manager positions filled. So probably by January, we'll have an autism waiver manager who will also be supporting other waivers and other programs, just the way we've redesigned the organization of the unit. So they'll be available for this committee and this group, but that probably won't be in place until January.
Could I ask a question? What has been the difficulty in finding folks for these positions?
Are you talking at the provider agencies or in the department?
In the department.
There isn't a difficulty in finding people for the positions. So I don't have permission to refill the vacancies. It's not that I can't find people for the vacancies. I don't have permission from OPM and the Department of Social Services to refill the vacancies of the staff that left.
Well, I think that's, that, and then I would ask why that's the case. It's these positions haven't been refunded. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, so I mean, state vacancies are a complicated
I
process. So I don't want to speak out of turn. There's just an approval process when someone vacates a position and how it gets authorized to be refilled. I have placed our vacancies up for consideration to be refilled. It has not gone through the process. They haven't been turned down. They just haven't been authorized yet for me to post. So I'm just waiting for that process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Christine, going back to your earlier, in your comments, you were saying, okay, well, if kind of a wish list, if you could have, or offer, certain types of services, when were you going to collect all of that and maybe possibly just do a readout just for the group here, what that wish list looked like? And
yeah,
can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I talked to the case managers a bit about that last time that I was able to meet with them. The Department of Social Services is doing just a very broad waiver rate study in general, but without kind of having specific data points, which I believe, firsthand information from case managers is an important data point when we're looking at services and where gaps are. I just want to understand if there's an access limitation, if there's a strong demand that could really be beneficial to our members that are not being able to be staffed by the workforce in the community. So they're compiling that information. I don't have it yet. I know they're working on bringing that all together. We can share the outcome of that with you, but I'm sure you all could probably tell me too right now what those positions are, and I'm happy to take that information too. So, the life skills coach, like that kind of support. I need to see kind of data. Like I tried to put 5 plans together with 40 hours and I was only able to fill 20 hours on 3 plans. That is what I'm looking for. And our team is a pretty strong team. I think they're going to be able to give me some of that kind of drill down information. Like we would have done a care plan with this amount of hours, but I know the provider didn't have the workforce, so we did this instead. That's what I'm looking for, because that's the real life implications, right? Yes. This rate is not competitive, therefore this service is not available to the members. That's what I'm looking for.
I think that'll be really meaningful to this group and to the council as we are prioritizing and we to work together for this population. So I'll be very interested to see how that shapes up, and even just some of the criteria that you're kind of looking at, when you put that analysis together.
I certainly would be happy to bring back our analysis to Tara to then distribute to kind of the ranking staff on this call, the team, the chairs and such, to see if you're in alignment and if you kind of agree. So we'll happy to share that. And then it would be very helpful if we had your support, with kind of how we're seeing the need.
Well,
I look forward to it.
I can tell you that ASRC is getting calls out the yin-yang from families whose kids are being serviced on the waiver, who cannot find folks to service them.
Right.
It's just become a crisis. We have people who are not happy with the services they're receiving for their child, but don't feel they can make a switch because,
Yeah.
you know, there isn't anybody else out there.
Yeah.
It's really, I've never seen anything quite like it. I mean, I've watched it building over the last, you know, how many years. But this has really hit the fan. So it's a huge problem.
Yeah, and certainly the case management team at the department is advocating that. There's a lot of concerns. We had thought about trying to, I was wondering some ways to creatively communicate with some of our other providers in the Medicaid space to see if they wanted to come on to the, you know, be credentialed under the autism waiver. And we've been talking about sending direct communications to the individuals under, you know, that might be a DDS provider. Some of our other more creative programs that are kind of branching out and diversifying. We have a lot of waiver providers on the acquired brain injury and the home care program for elders that are just trying to diversify their market, right? And serve more members. So we thought about posting it. We understand that, you know, it is a very niche population. It's very highly skilled. And if the workers aren't there, right, or the rates aren't competitive, we could ask everybody to be a provider and we still won't have the workforce. So it's a complicated thing for sure. We will not have, you know, significant dollars to spread across everything, but if we can find targeted pockets that could really develop access, I would like to make the argument for that.
Can I add something? It's short, Andrew Comro here. As somebody who approved waiver provider who stopped doing it, I can share the biggest reason, and it actually wasn't the dollar amount. It was too hard to do it. I'll give you one good example. If you wanted to do a group, you know, if you wanted, it was basically impossible, right? Like if you want to do a social skills group and only, you know, maybe some people from there's no good way to do that. And it's kind of like, well, if that was there, you know, and it would be nice if people who weren't on the waiver could show up, even if it was free, or just, it would have taken 1,000,000 hours to set up a social sales group for multiple people on the waiver. And if there are groups where there's 5 or 10 people, then maybe more people can join. The amount of effort required, we gave up. It was literally impossible. I was working with you know, Amy James, who's again fantastic. I think someone, I don't know if anyone else can speak to this or the experience, but something wanted to do that people were asking for that would also be a good, efficient use of our time.
Sure.
You know, I wasn't even like trying to get, you know, if 4 people showed up, we weren't even trying to get 4 times the money. If one person should, you know, we would have taken less. It was just something we wanted to do. And I think it's something that's asked a lot. I know Lois can probably speak to that as well. And then it's easier for more people to show up. It was just like, it was basically literally impossible. And then also too, you know, if you're trying to get added to a plan for one person, people, autism, executive functioning, a lot of times they don't show up, blah, blah, blah. And if you're a small provider, you know, then you don't get paid for that, right?
Right.
So again, if you're a large agency and blah, 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 I'm not saying you should pay us for them not showing up, but if there's a group and you know that, hey, at least a few people are going to show up that day, it can be worth your time. But even administratively, it was impossible. And I feel like that could be an easy fix. And, you know, we would have taken less money, right?
Yeah.
You know, we would have been happy to do the group with 1 person on the waiver and 5 other people show up because it's still an hour or something, right? But realistically basically impossible. I don't know if anyone else has a similar experience.
I see Carol, your hand is raised.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of her, but yeah.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
I would be interested in knowing why it was so difficult because we run social skills groups and we don't have an issue running them. We had an issue starting them for some reasons, which I'm not going to get into right now, but we do run them now and we don't have any problems, and we have luncheons and anybody is able to come even if they're not part of the group. So maybe it's an off-camera discussion, but I would love to know why it was so difficult.
Through the billing and getting added to the plan, like, are you running the group for free, and or are some people with waivers showing up and you're getting paid?
Yeah. Yep. We don't run it for free. We get paid. It's part of, we get paid through the waiver program. It's part of an individual on their individual plan. If social skills groups are required, then that money is allocated and we have a prior authorization to be able to bill for that.
We were doing it more, I think, job coach, but yeah, I don't know why well, you ran into a lot of issues setting it up. So, but you did it, right? So I think I just gave up.
Well,
So
I think
it could be
right.
easy.
Because there isn't a mechanism to pay for a group, like a whole group.
Yeah.
There's a mechanism to pay for one person to attend a group. And
Yeah.
so then if you have 5 people attending a group, then you can bill for each of those 5 people and have a group. But there isn't a mechanism to just have a group that you can invite people. And I see Melissa's on there too, but Melissa does a lot of groups as well. But if you decide to ever go down that route again, I'm happy to help too. But but there isn't, you can't just have a group. You have to have individuals with the line item. And I just want to comment again back on something that Christine said, Andrew, not to kind of digress a little bit, but it concerns me when we're talking about, we have 250 people max that we're getting services right now, and we can't provide services to that 250 people. 250 is not a lot in the state of Connecticut. And if we're talking about not having the agencies and support to give 250 people services, then what does that mean when we take, another 250 and put them on the waiver and there's nobody to provide services for them either? So
You are right.
Quick question for the people who were attending your group, were they already your clients, like for other things? Like these were people like just for anyway, it seems like the process could be easier regardless.
It was both, Andrew. We started the group, so there was sort of a little bit of a monopoly about groups initially, maybe 10 years ago, and so that was a little bit of a thing to try to get one started. But once we started it, we didn't have issues with people. We have people who attend the group that are only coming to groups. They don't get any other service with us.
Okay.
Melissa, I'm gonna move this on. Thank you both. Melissa, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that I run 8 groups a week, and some of them have individuals who are on the waiver in the groups. Some are paid through insurance. Some are individual clients of mine. Many are not. They've found me, I believe, through word of mouth. And yeah, they run weekly. They're very well attended. They're so just to put that out there.
Thank you. I mean, I appreciate the discussion and all viewpoints. But Christine, I want to just circle back to you. I didn't know if you had anything else for comments for your update.
I do not.
Based on what you heard.
Okay. Happy to answer questions, but nothing right now.
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead, Judy.
Where are we on the wait list? What's the number?
Sure. So we have 2,187 individuals waiting for services. I have said a few times on this meeting that we are working with DDS to develop a retouch of the wait lists. Some of these individuals have been on for a very, very long time. We've shared some individuals that we want them to kind of reconsider. And we're working with DDS on a frequency of retouch because you shouldn't be put on the wait list and then have no contact, for 8 years. So all of that is in the works with DDS. It has not been finalized, but they've been very cooperative, and we're working collaboratively to kind of, how do we best serve the individuals that are waiting? Some of our individuals were placed when they were very, very young and may now already be able to be picked up by DDS faster than they can waiting for services with us. So we're working through that with their eligibility team and their Medicaid team. So our application date, because I know a lot of people like application date, to put this in perspective, is October 2014. Which is hard. I know that's hard for some to comprehend. But that's our reality of services right now.
Just to add a little to what Christine had said, we've actually in the last 18 months removed 350 people from the wait list. Approximately 40 of those individuals were found eligible for DDS. A number of the individuals had declined services. Quite a few have moved out of state, and the rest are assigned to case managers.
Yes.
And what was the duration of removing them?
Needs to continue to, so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mike, thank you for that. What was the duration of removing 350? How long did it take for you to get through that to that number? Was that
about
like
18
a
months.
sprint effort? 18 months? Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Christine.
No, I was just going to say, there's like those touches in that churn. We need to make sure that we're doing this very frequently. Nate, one of our team members in autism, does a lot of touching, and Lisa, of trying to make sure that everyone's kind of staying on top, that we have current contact information. We know where people are. So when we do reach them on the list, we can get a hold of them. But there is an overhaul of the wait list that needs to be done in conjunction with DDS to really see who is appropriately waiting and who could be better served under other means, right? Because that's really what's important, because we shouldn't have people waiting and then when they could have been getting something else. Because if they're moved to our wait list, DDS doesn't, they've already been deemed not eligible for DDS, but we don't know that that's always accurate. As Mike just said, we found 40 that were picked up.
Who is responsible for that overhaul that you just?
So that's the collaboration that DDS and DSS are doing together. That came down from our commissioners. They want people, like, we don't want this gap any longer. We need a coordinated effort to revamp the wait list. And Tara, myself, Heather, Krista over at DDS, we routinely meet, we're strategizing and trying to really just collectively serve these individuals. So that's all kind of in process.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Tara, I think we have next is legislative.
Yeah, so we had sent out a poll, and Kim and Patrick volunteered to help lead this initiative. So I am going to share my screen and pull up the PowerPoint that they are going to go through. Okay, everybody see that okay?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Okay, Kim, so I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
Yes, and my colleague Patrick, we had discussed a couple of key things that we wanted to bring to you for some feedback. And that is primarily centered on what we would like to get out of our discussion with legislators. I think the most obvious thing to present is to make sure that the legislators, particularly those who may be new coming on board, to make sure they've been adequately oriented to the purpose of our group. They understand who the membership is and our primary functions and responsibilities, and making sure that there's been a shift in recent legislation, moving it to OPM for administrative responsibilities. What we really need to hear from you is from there, what do we really want out of this session to try to gain some understanding around what's our ask. So as you know, Tara sent out a survey. We did hear from 11 individuals from the committee, and these were the top priorities that came back to us. Primarily, people were interested in making sure that we discussed the wait list, supportive housing, and mental health as the top three. And in discussion, Patrick and I really felt the need that we really needed to clarify this a little bit more. What is it about those top priorities? What primarily is going to be our ask? So in further discussion and also hearing more from the different groups, including the subcommittees, some things that have already come forward have been, one is to talk about a needs assessment, to really think about in greater detail, what are the specific needs from our stakeholders. I'm going to turn it over to Tara for a minute to explain something that has been done in Pennsylvania that could serve as a model.
Sure. So we have some researchers in, so many of you know I come from Pennsylvania. So we had a group of researchers that were funded through our Department of Developmental Disabilities at the time, and they are in different areas of the state, and it's called ASSERT, which is Autism Services and Resources and Training. And they did a statewide need assessment to inform the autism waiver. They did specifically looking, at the people who are on wait lists and getting information from them on, service needs and gaps, and then also looking at those who are, in the state at large and what unmet needs were, there. So they have a data dashboard where they display the data and using the life course model, look at, daily living, employment across several areas that they were identified and were able to drill down data specifically in each of those categories. So, kind of reaching out and doing some outreach, we know that it would cost about $150,000 to replicate that in Connecticut.
And I think that was part of our discussion. And I think that's consistent with some of the discussion from previous meetings. Certainly I, being a new member to the group and being involved in, okay, well, we're putting together this presentation. What are we going to say? Presenting these priorities, I felt like I would like to have more confidence that these are the priorities of this work group, but is it the priorities of all the individuals and families and potentially the vendors that are currently providing or needed to receive services or are interested in providing those services? So to me, it was more about, is the information we're presenting truly representative? And is there a way to quickly, because I know there's some urgency behind this, but is there a way to quickly get some additional information that we would have more confidence that was truly representative of the state? And so I think that's kind of where I was really concerned and felt was a priority for me personally.
And this has not been done by the state of Connecticut to date, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
Okay. So again, Patrick, to your point, like this has just never been done, and it would serve us really well to examine this. It's sort of a needs assessment. Okay, thank you.
I did put a the link to the dashboard in the chat for those of you who are interested in looking to see what it could look like. I agree that this could be something that could be very, very helpful, because I think we could begin to examine what exactly are the needs that are out there. Just in conversations even this morning, understanding like it's hard to get this going, but over here in this pocket, it is working. And to have a much clearer picture of where are those needs, where what levels of needs, and then we could begin to feel more secure in our prioritization. Tara, you can go to the next slide. Something else in the spirit of transparency, I, as a parent, have been bringing up at a couple of our meetings, is, what are the other resources that we can begin to leverage that might take some weight off the need to always to be dependent on the waiver. And as a mom, I have run into this because my daughter has been able to access in-home BCBA supports through our private insurance until I received a notice that when she hit 21, it had been cut off. And in really preparing her for her adult life, I've started to, again, rethink like, what would I need for her, from the waiver for her versus what we can begin to access through other resources. And I feel pretty strongly that we might want to look at this as a possibility and not have to force people to be dependent on the waiver as being the only source of options. So I would like to propose that we, as a committee, look at this and talk about this just being one of other possible sources where we can make a difference for families. I have the good fortune of being in a position to think about all kinds of resources for my daughter. And that might leave the waiver available for families that really are dependent on that as their major source of resources.
You want me to go to the next one?
Yeah, I was just giving a moment just to see if there was any action, but silence is a good one.
We would need to hear from the group health insurance plans in terms of like utilization and cost and all that sort of analysis. We would be dependent upon them to provide that and really get their buy-in. And so presenting this to legislators is more just as an option or an opportunity, depending on how we present that. Would you say that that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
that's accurate. I mean, it's just pointing it out as an area where it's just informing and advising options for the legislators to consider. And yes, now Tara, you could go to the next slide. Another area of consideration is to talk about, the caps, and the current cap, as you know, is at 50,000, and to evaluate the opportunity to consider tiers, which would then again make a broader use of the funding sources. And so some conversations have been also brought up around that, to be able to talk about level of needs and how we would begin to assess that and organize that. That would certainly be an area of follow-up as a follow-up to this. But we really would be in concert with this thinking and this discussion in terms of other areas such as DDS and talking about intellectual disabilities. I know that they're also pursuing this as a discussion point. So any questions on this or commentary on that?
Please remind the group here, what is the scheduled date for this presentation as we move on?
January, right?
It's-
Yes.
What was the date? Okay.
January.
I don't remember the exact date, but we were discussing January.
Okay. Thank you.
So based on this, some of this thinking, we wanted to get a better pulse on what people thought. So Tara is going to put out a poll that would more isolate where your comments are and what your thinking is in terms of these things that we presented today, but also if there was anything additional that you were thinking. So Tara just put the link to the poll in the chat. And Tara, you were going to give people time right now, correct?
Yeah, if everyone wants to be able, if you can access that now, that would be great. Instead of me having to send it out and wait on people to respond, if we could just take a minute. It's just kind of voting on those options presented, and all of those in our subcommittee groups. Kim, I'll add to that, and all of those were ideas that came out of those conversations, and also related to the top priority identified in the original survey. So I know that there's still subcommittees working on workforce and all of that, but as a whole, those were all related to the top priority that was identified. And I welcome anyone who wants to participate in the survey too. It doesn't have to be just members of the council. If we have people who are community members and representing the community at large, I would encourage you all to participate. It's a good way to get some additional feedback.
Organic polling.
Exactly. Okay.
So we're gonna wait just a couple minutes just to have everybody take that poll right now. If
Yeah,
everyone
people
could.
I can see that people are filling it out right now. And if there's if you have any additional comments or things that you would like to see this subcommittee I work on, please feel free to use this time to identify that or, put it in the chat. And I did send out an invite for the January meeting to the Human Services Committee. And we can, send out additional invites to legislators.
Great, thank you. How much more time do we want to give people, Tara?
I have 18 responses so far, so I see that they're coming in. If you want, I can go ahead and give, while people are doing that, I can give the updates that I have from OPM if you would like. We can jump to some of the agency updates.
I think we should do that just in the interest of time. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. So I know supportive housing was also in the top 3. So I wanted to provide an update. As we've discussed before, there is some reserved funding for supportive housing. So we are making some progress in that space and expect to launch a pilot in 2025 with that reserve funding. The pilot will provide 15 housing vouchers, and we're going to target current autism waiver participants. And the provider will use a application process to select those participants. They will have some case management services, and we'll start with a lower census and work up to those 15 participants. This would be we have funding for a 3-year period. We will collect data on some quality measures, and be able to report that back, to this group and then be able to potentially discuss expansion and or what additional funding costs would be needed to do that. We are targeting, looking to target waiver participants specifically because they would already have the lawn completed. We would be able to identify people who have the ability to, you know, be home alone for, you know, over 24 hours and, you know, kind of drill down on, you know, those specifics for, you know, an eligibility. Because we only have 15, we felt like that would be the best, you know, way. And we only have funding for 3 years. So those individuals would have access, you know, to case managers already in the waiver. So we felt like that was the best. 15 is just not a lot to open it up to statewide applications for, you know, for people. So what I would love to hear back from all of you, and I know the subcommittee was waiting for this information to, you know, before they were looking at doing more work. So what your thoughts are on that, and you know, how you would, you know, like to be updated or continue to be involved. You know, I would love to hear some feedback on that.
See, we have Lois's hand up already.
Yep, go ahead, Lois.
Yes, well, you answered one of the questions, which was whether you would be looking around the state at waiver participants, or is this is going to take place in the Hartford area? Is that what you're looking at?
I don't have it drilled down to a specific area yet, just identifying waiver participants. And then we would have to look at where, you know, housing was available and all of that. So I don't have that date. This is more still like, you know, getting a proposal together, and a budget and all of that. That's kind of where we're at, so that we can get it done in 2025.
Okay, so you're looking at, not to be too specific, but you're looking at, are we looking at the middle of the year, the end of the year? Or
no, I mean, I'm hoping that we can, you know, get this done and started, you know, at least the ball rolling at the beginning of 2025.
Okay.
That's my target.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you.
Stephen, I see your hand is raised.
It's a question. Have we identified a provider or a housing?
We have identified a provider who has expertise in autism specifically, so that they would have, you know, they would be coming into this space. As you know, we're looking to Demas to, you know, kind of model this after how they're doing supportive housing, but we wanted to pull in a provider who we know had experience and expertise in autism.
Okay.
Kara, it's Lynn. Sorry, I couldn't find my raise my hand button, so I'm jumping in. I apologize.
Yeah, sure. No, that's fine.
So I think I mentioned before that I am on a board of a group that has a bunch of group homes, and obviously they do primarily serve individuals with intellectual disabilities, but they also have folks with autism. And they are in March launching moving a number of their clients into housing, and it's a very advanced, you know, they're obviously working with DDS, but it's a very advanced program. I think they have, if I'm recalling, maybe 10 or 15 apartments, and it's all in one space, but between the ground floor and other floors. So happy to put anybody, the housing group or whomever, in touch with them, understanding that there may be certainly differences among the population, but it is fully technology supported. They've done all the work already. So I think it's a great model to replicate, you know, with or without intellectual disability, doesn't matter, right? They still need the support. And every time I sit and hear about their progress, I think of Yana, because it is on, this property is on a bus line. They have access to both the jobs that they're working, the communities that they're living in. So I'd love to share that information. I can get it to you, Tara, and then you can share it with the right folks. But maybe just a Zoom call with this organization might kickstart the activity on this and not have you replicate work that's already been done.
Great. Thank you so much, Lynn. I would appreciate that.
Lynn and Tara, I think it'd be particularly helpful if, when we think about quality measures and outcomes, I'd specifically think that might be, interesting. So, Lynn, if you can procure that, you can obtain that and share that. I think that would be, because that's really what we're going to want to see is outcomes here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my intention is to have this, provider, give regular updates to the council. So I'm hopeful that maybe in January we would have, something to present. But, beyond that, if there's a way that everyone would like to receive updates, or you have specific quality measures that you would like, to throw out for suggestions, please feel free to, shoot me an email. And, I'm happy to consider all of that.
Great update.
And then the second one is that, I reported out from OPM, I reported out that we were tasked to do the study to examine if IQ should be removed from the statutory definition of intellectual disability, and look at the level of need tool currently being used by DDS and DSS. So I just wanted to report out that the contractor is finalizing that report, and we will have that to the legislators by the January deadline. So that's good news. And I also wanted, I will send out a copy to the members as well, so that you guys could all see that. As you can imagine, if we were to change the eligibility criteria, or consider changing the eligibility criteria for the DDS waivers, that would impact the autism waiver as well. So I will send a copy of the final draft out to members. I would think that you all would want to have some kind of talking points or voices. This goes out to legislators as well. So that may be something that collectively you would want to have a voice on in the January meeting and presentation, to add to, what Kim and Patrick have already committed to presenting. So if, if you need me or would like me to organize another meeting to, kind of work through, an opinion on that, and however you guys want to do that is fine. So, please, I'm happy to do the administrative back end on that if you guys would like.
I mean, Tara, that seems to have potentially profound implications.
Yeah.
And so I would think we would want to meet and review it and have an opportunity to come up with questions and or priorities that we would want people to address as our, through our advocacy responsibility.
Okay, I'm happy to, so we would have a quick turnaround. So January, it's going to be sent out January 1st. So I can look for some meeting times for that, maybe second week of January, or the end of the first week of January, when everyone's just coming back from vacations and all of that. So session starts January 8th. So, and then our meeting is the 15th.
So the week of the 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this group has, when we've worked together, I had previously worked with Doriana in terms of, collecting and drafting a letter like for the general statutes, we're changing for OPM taking over. We work together to kind of create a letter. I imagine, Patrick, I know you weren't involved in that, but this group and the council at large had pulled together an opinion, a voice, a statement, etc. And I think that we're going to be in a position where we're going to have to, like you said, have questions, comments, etc. Similar to how we did for the governor's bill. So I envision that we're going to have to pull that together as well. Lois, I see your hand up.
Yeah, this is really, I mean, vital that I think that we meet. And you get input from this group. I have so many questions. It would probably take the rest of this meeting, for instance. I mean, is there going to be money attached to this? Is there going to be, are we just going to create
this was just to clarify, this was just a study that was commissioned in legislation last year. So this is the, going out to inform the legislators on, what would a potential definition look like and what would the impact be?
Yeah.
So there's nothing like if there was a statutory change, that would have to happen this year.
You mean this coming year?
Right. They would like a bill would, have to be proposed to change that. This is just looking at the study that was completed is just an analysis of what other states are doing and how they've updated their definitions and or, revised their service delivery.
Where can we find that study, Tara? I'm sorry if that's been.
It hasn't been published yet. So
right,
it's one.
Good. I didn't miss it.
It's
Thank
one
you.
that we OPM was tasked to do over this past year. And so
Thank you.
the final draft will be submitted by January 1st.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. Lois, did you have another comment?
Yeah, well, I guess then that, I too would want to read over that and so I guess I'm being premature.
Yeah, so I'll send it out. Right now, it's just a FYI that's going to come out. And I really was just more or less looking to see if you guys wanted to schedule a time for everyone to get together and, weigh in just because of the administrative work on the back end. I wanted to make sure to get that on people's schedules since it was going to be close to the holiday and also close to the January meeting where we are inviting legislators to participate.
I think it's a resounding yes.
Yeah.
Rebecca?
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Hi, I'm joining you today per invite from Representative Tammy Exum when I met her. And I just wanted to completely agree. We should schedule a time to get together and weigh in on this from all of our various perspectives. So I would love to get involved. I've had some background in graduate school in public health or pharmacy, and I did biomolecular science. So that's my education background. But I also, at this point, I want to get involved in policies and get more advocacy work forward, push more of those forward. So I think it would be great to involve a lot of our stakeholders and community members.
Great. All of our meetings are public and posted on our website. So, and we only really turn this over to members when there's something that we need to vote on, but we really wanted to keep this council open. We want anyone who wants to participate and is willing to join us at this time to come in and participate. And we're happy to hear from everyone. So welcome, and we appreciate you joining.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so that's all I have for OPM updates. The only other one is the employment study will also be, and that was reviewing services and supports that currently exist in the state on employment supports and looking at some recommendations that will be coming out of that as well. So that's also coming out. I'd be happy to send that out to the group as well as it relates to disability and employment. And then I'm going to go through anything else on the legislative end, Kim or Patrick, that you guys wanted to say to wrap that conversation up.
No, other than if there was something that we didn't consider, please put it in the chat so that we could consider that information as we work through revisions.
Right. And if one of our asks is to pursue the statewide survey, we need to have some clear ideas about what we're going to recommend for, data points that we'd like to get information on.
Tara, when will we have the results of your poll? Will we have it by the end of the meeting, or are you going to push that out later?
I have 22 responses. I can read it now. It looks like there's a resounding support for looking to advocate for change to the insurance law. There's also a lot of support for the needs assessment as 95%. There was 22 votes, so 95% said that they support that ask. And then out of the choice of funding for additional waiver slots at the $50,000 cap or looking to tier, it looks like the majority would prefer to look at tiering and what that would look like if we were to revise the waiver. So
that poll would inform what will eventually be included in the
so it looks like if we're going to have, so it looks like for what Kim and Patrick are going to move forward with, it would be the ask for the needs assessment, the change in insurance law, and looking at tiering the autism waiver.
Okay, and that's a very small survey poll, but it is from our directly from this council and who we represent. Okay, all right.
Tara, are we going to set a meeting date for early January today, or are you going to pick a date and send it out to us?
I am happy to do that now if the group would like to. So looking at the week of January.
About the holidays, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, so looking at that, like I know I personally cannot do the 6th, but right now, any other time that week is open for me. So do you want me to throw out a time?
Sure.
Afternoons, I think, typically work better for the whole. So we could do, if we look at a 3 o'clock time period, would Tuesday the 7th at 3 o'clock work for people?
Yes.
I'm seeing head shakes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's do Tuesday the 7th at 3 o'clock, and I will send out an invite for that after the meeting.
Great, thank you, Tara.
Yep. Thanks, Stephen. I appreciate the comment.
And that would also be posted on
the
OPM website and open to the public to join.
That's correct.
Great. I'll block it.
And then I didn't know from I'm just going to read off the list of other agencies to see if there's any updates. So Department of Education, Brian, I know you were on. Do you have any updates you would want to share with the group?
I think he had to hop off. He may not have rejoined.
Okay. I saw that he joined initially. Jennifer, anything from Demas?
No updates today, thank you.
Kathy, anything from BRS?
No updates.
Okay. And I know DPH jumped off. Office of Early Childhood.
I'm
No
still
updates
here.
this
It's
time.
Oh,
Anne.
there you are, Anne. I thought you were going to jump off there.
I do not have any updates to share,
Okay.
but I'm still
All right.
with you for a few more
Okay.
minutes.
Thanks. Mary Beth, anything from OEC?
No, nothing today.
Okay, great. And I know DCF couldn't join today, and Krista had to. Krista, are you back? I didn't see if she rejoined us. Okay, and then the last one would be Stephen. Do you have anything from Disability Rights?
Nothing at this point, no.
Okay. All right, then that is the only thing that we skipped over was work group updates. So Lynn, I didn't know if you wanted to give any updates on education and training. We already talked about supportive housing, so.
Sure. Yeah, so we met on the 23rd, and it's interesting because a lot of what was talked about sort of segues in to our conversation with regard to adequate providers. And in general, what we talked about was we've had very good participation, continue to have great participation in those calls. And we really talked about trying not to recreate the wheel, but rather pulling out some existing training programs that exist and trying to spotlight and replicate them. And we talked about it with Brian and use sort of the educational setting as an example of where we might be able to start by pulling together what programs exist for training and how we could replicate them, both at, primary and secondary education levels, and then talked a lot about working with universities. One of the biggest challenges is how do we interest people in, folks who are not currently in the workforce? How do we attract talent, promote the work that, we know is really valuable and meaningful to individuals who are at high school level. And we talked about some of those programs that exist in some of the high schools. For example, here in New Britain, there is a healthcare academy, but they don't happen to have a track that might be appropriate for working with individuals with autism. But why couldn't they? And how could we maybe start to get interest at that level and really help to build the workforce there? So I think that's, in summary, the high points, unless I did quickly review my notes, but if anybody who was on the call remembers something different, please chime in. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, anybody else have anything for the good of the order? And thank you, Rep. Exum, for participating today. I see that you're on, so.
Thank you so much. Yes, I came to the right meeting at the right time, and I look very forward to leaning in January to hear the recommendations. And I also want to say hello to Rebecca. We met, and I think she would be a wonderful participant in this group and give us good insight. Thank you for all your good hard work. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Happy to have her, for sure.
All right.
Looks like Kim had a note in the chat.
Oh, for the January meeting, if we can get a list of legislative agenda items from the state agencies. Okay, I'll look at gathering that information for you, Kim. All right, fantastic.
I think we're ready to adjourn.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing everyone in the new year. Happy holidays, and be safe, and we'll see you January 7th. Looking forward to getting the the OPM results.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
All right.
Thanks. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.